Okay, hello everybody. How you guys doing? My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. What's happening? Sorry for the delay there. Had a little bit of technical difficulties this morning. Trying to get everything set up and all that stuff. Computer just doesn't want to really seem to cooperate. Sorry about that, but we should be going now. So yeah, let's get into it. Stream today is going to be all about anti-vaxxers. Let me know if there's any problem, because YouTube, it seems to me, is like giving me issues, and my computer is giving me issues, and lots of stuff is giving me issues. So let me know if you have any problem hearing me, or if you have any like problem, like, with the stream stuttering or anything like that. But should be okay. So anyway, yeah, sorry for the delay, you guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you, Lewis, for joining also. I really appreciate that. Um, anyway, so we're going to be talking about anti-vaxxers, specifically anti-COVID vaxxers today. But before we get into that, let's take a look at what we're going to work on. So I was going to do you remember those dragons that we did a few streams back, the Eastern Dragon versus the Western Dragon? I wanted to color that for you guys, but I couldn't find it, and I think I need to actually go get that scanned. So in the meantime, here's a piece that I worked on last year. This is from 2020. This is the Oompa Loompas attacking the Smurf village. This was a thing that I drew and I never finished, so I figure, okay, this would be a good opportunity to actually start coloring this. And I thought it could be pretty cool, nice little funny illustration. I gave the Smurfs tanks because the Smurfs would have the technological advantage here. Anyway, so yeah, let's work on this while we're and then maybe next week we'll do the dueling dragons. So anyway, yeah, really sorry about that. Really sorry that it took me 20 minutes to get ready here. Lately I've been much better at that, at getting, ready on time and all that stuff, so apologize for that. Anyway, so let's see here. We are talking about the Rona because, it seems like, it's easy to forget, right, that the pandemic is still going. Right. Especially now in the United States where we're starting to kind of, get rid of those restrictions, right? A lot of states are opening up. People are going back to work. You're allowed to go inside of restaurants and movie theaters and things without wearing a mask, for the most part. Stuff like that. And it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget that, it's really not over just yet. This is, in the United States, maybe we're starting to come off of lockdown, but pretty much everywhere else in the world, it's ramping up, right? Because most other countries on Earth don't have the same, amount of vaccinations that we have here, right? And that's one thing that we can say that we've done rather well in the United States. Like, our response to the pandemic last year was a disaster. Absolute disaster that resulted in, more than almost 700,000 deaths in the world. And, our country is number one in confirmed deaths. Although I wouldn't be surprised if you saw more in Russia and China or Brazil or something, but, ultimately. But one thing we did do really well is get a large amount of vaccine supply for our citizens, right? So the problem is that, the anti-vax movement has kind of, I guess, taken advantage of the politicization of vaccines and kind of come out in force. And now we're getting, like, resistance to vaccinations here. So we've only managed to vaccinate about 65 to 67% of all the adults in the country, right? And what we're starting to see is that in those states and counties in the United States where you have lower vaccination numbers, you're starting to see another wave. You know, this would be the fourth wave now of you know, Rona in spikes that we've experienced so far. You know, and it's kind of disturbing. So big news is in Los Angeles, for example, last week. Actually, for the last 3 weeks, there have been 1,000 new confirmed cases, right, in Los Angeles, right? Now, Los Angeles has roughly 70% of all adults have gotten the second vaccination, right? So people will be saying, well, how come we're seeing a spike in Los Angeles if 70% of the people have have been vaccinated, right? Because the idea is that you need at least 70% of the people in order to hit herd immunity. So it's like, well, how come we don't have that herd immunity, right? How come the cases are still going up? And it's like, well, that's not exactly what herd immunity means. You know, it's not exactly like, okay, once you hit 70%, you can stop and then nobody else will ever get the sickness ever again. That's not really how it works. That just means that the majority of people, you know, that means it's safe enough to where if somebody was not vaccinated, they can reasonably interact with other people, and the chances of them getting it are lower. That doesn't mean they won't get it, right? Problem is that now with you know, COVID-19, right, and even with the old variant, like they're talking a lot about like the Delta variant and all that stuff, and how it's like you can catch it after, you know, several seconds of exposure, right? But even with the old variant, like, you know, COVID was very, very communicable, right? And what we're seeing now is that, well, you know, the people that basically have not been vaccinated are the ones who are catching it, right? So you think, okay, 70% of people, right? Well, that leaves in Los Angeles County alone that 30% of people who are not vaccinated. That's over 1 million people. That's 1,190,100 people, right, remaining that can catch this, you know, this disease, right? And that's what we're seeing. That's plenty of people. That's enough to start another wave, right? And we're seeing that in LA County, of the people who are being hospitalized now because of you know, their exposure to the Rona, right? 99% of them are unvaccinated. Right? And the thing is that that's not just in Los Angeles. That's something we're seeing. That's a pattern that's being repeated basically around the entire country, right? All of the people, you know, there's a spike in cases. Those cases tend to be people who are not vaccinated, right? And the people who do end up in the hospital, 99% of them are unvaccinated. And that, yeah, like you just said there, Lewis, you know, that puts the nail in the coffin for me, man. That's like, okay, vaccines are, you know, the vaccine works. It works. This is the data, you know, the data's right there. It's playing out right before our eyes. Right. It's kind of undeniable at this point, you know. Oompa Loompas have green hair, right? Yeah, you know what? Let's just do a quick Google what an Oompa Loompa looks like. Because I have not seen this movie in many, many years. Yeah, okay. Green hair, brown shirts, white overalls. Okay, so let's go back to our stream in here. Green hair. Well, let's do the green hair next. So yeah, pretty bad stuff. And the thing is, we're seeing this same pattern being replicated across the entire country, right? So of those states that, you know, the places in the country that have seen a fourth wave here, another spike in cases, number one, the biggest jump is Tennessee. Tennessee has the biggest jump so far, right, from last week to this week, with a 250% increase in cases, right? Second is actually, believe it or not, California. Now, you remember California has 10 times the population of Tennessee, right? So that's why you're seeing it. And, the thing is, they say, okay, well, yeah, 70% of California is vaccinated. Well, that also, when you have, like, how many people live in California now? 20 million, I think. Let me see. Population of California. Right. 40 million people live in California. So what's 70% of that? What, 30, 33 million, roughly? So that leaves about 6, 7 million people, just off the top of my head. So that's kind of a lot of people that are left that can still get sick, you know? So it doesn't, and that kind of shows you, like, California is not a block. Like, it votes blue, it tends to be liberal, but that doesn't mean everybody in California is a Democrat or is liberal or a progressive or even believes in vaccines. No, that doesn't mean any of those things. There are very large portions of the state which are very, very conservative. Pretty much all those counties that are outside of the major cities are conservative. And if it wasn't for the big cities, if it wasn't for San Francisco and Los Angeles and San Diego and etc., California would be a red state. I mean, you remember, Ronald Reagan came from fucking California. So yeah, it's like, you know, lots and lots of conservatives here, and those are the people who are choosing to not be vaccinated. And those are the people that are getting sick and who are dying right now, you know. But look at the rest of these. So California was second. Third is Alabama, right? And pretty much, the biggest spike, right? Pretty much the rest of those are all southern red states, right? The state with the most new cases overall in the last couple of weeks is Florida, right? Please remember that Florida has been underreporting their cases for months now. Since last year, they've basically been hiding the amount of people who the number of cases they get, the number of deaths that have resulted. They've been hiding these things, reporting false numbers, because they basically wanted Donald Trump to look good. That's why. They wanted to have low numbers so that it would help the public perception that Trump had it under control, and that way people in Florida would vote for Donald Trump. So, whatever you see the official numbers in Florida is, just remember it's way more than that. Who knows? The thing is that the sad thing is we don't know. We don't know how much more it is. We just know that it's more. Right? We know that, DeSantis was basically covering up how many people died. And, there's that famous case of the one healthcare worker lady who got, basically the fucking, DeSantis sent the fucking SWAT team to go arrest her or whatever because she, created her own, independent dashboard so that she can, report on these numbers and give, more accurate case numbers. And he, used the full force of the law to shut her down because it made him look bad. Right? So remember all that stuff. One day that, I can't remember her name, I don't have it written down, but one day that lady's going to be exonerated and she's going to sign a multi-million-dollar book tour and travel around the country, but by then it'll be too late because hundreds of thousands of people will be fucking dead. That's bad news. Anyway, moving on here. Let's see. Florida was number 1. Texas is the second for overall new cases. Third is California, of course. Fourth is Missouri. Fifth is Louisiana. So we're starting to see another pattern there, on a per capita basis, right? Arkansas leads the country in per capita cases, right? With 187 per 100,000. So You know, that makes it, because the thing is, you'll see in Arkansas, like, you'll say, oh, the overall numbers are low, but then you look at their population and you realize their population is tiny, and you go, okay, well, that actually means that you have a larger chance of actually catching it. If you have a larger per capita, that means that you're more likely to catch it in that state than, say, in another state with a lower per capita. You know what I mean? Let's see here. They also have brown undergarments here. That brown is too rich. It should be more like that. There we go. Oh shit, wrong layer, wrong layer. Let's go back. There we go. So anyway, that's kind of the pattern we're seeing all around the country. And just to kind of, as a side note, you'll notice that pattern kind of conforms with the same sort of pattern we saw. They're all southern red states. Those are the same states where, basically they deny people certain rights depending on their sexual orientation. They have enacted abortion restrictions. Those are the same states that are going bananas over teaching critical race theory to children, even though in real life no one ever actually does that. Those are the states that are trying to stop, trans women from using the right bathroom or from competing in sports or anything like that. Those are the states where you can't even have a discussion now about racism in the classroom, and also where they're making it very, very hard to vote. And also, they are preventing marijuana legalization, and it's like the same things over and over and over, and I know I kind of like, I think it bears repeating because it's like, we live in two Americas. We live in two Americas. We live in one America that allows you to kind of do what you want with your body and actually cares when it comes to a public health issue that is resulting in hundreds of thousands of people dying. And we have another America where it's basically, fuck you, get a job. I don't care if you're going to die. We're not going to do shit to help you. And, these same states, we're also seeing them. There was an attempt, for example, in Kentucky to prevent people from getting stimulus checks. Right? Was it Kentucky? I think it was Kentucky. It was an attempt to prevent people from getting stimulus checks because they didn't want people to get stimulus checks and then choose to not go back to work. They wanted, they wanted people to go back to their crappy retail and restaurant jobs in order to kickstart the economy. I think it was Kentucky. It might have been Louisiana. It was one of those states down in the South there that just decided that, tough shit, if you don't want to get a job where you're exposed on a daily basis to random fucking strangers and all of their diseases they carry during a pandemic, too bad. You are not getting any help from the Fed. Like, they essentially couldn't do that. There was an effort. I think it was there. I think it was Kentucky. There was an effort to stop people from getting their stimulus checks, and then basically federal judge says you can't do that because, federal law supersedes state law, right? But still, that kind of goes to show, what the Republicans actually really give a shit about. Like, they don't really care if you die. They care if you work your minimum wage job. And if you happen to, die when you're making somebody a fucking, ice quad venti caramel macchiato or whatever, too fucking bad. Right? Get back to work. So, anyway, so we're actually seeing now, because you see a lot of these protesters out there, these anti-vax protesters and things like that, and we're starting to see states pass laws to basically protect anti-vaxxers, which is kind of funny because, traditionally, anti-vaxxers have not really had much in the way of political power. For pretty much years, like pretty much ever in the country, you were allowed to, say, require people to get a vaccine if, say, you wanted your kid to go to school. right? That used to be a thing where you didn't have a choice. If your kid wasn't vaccinated, they didn't get to go into public school. And it only really makes sense because it's like, you know, you should be able to send your child to school, for example, like without having to worry if they're going to catch the measles or the mumps or polio or whatever. I mean, I don't even think they vaccinate people for polio anymore because they eradicated it. That's just another example that shows that vaccines work. There's no more polio. That's something that was within the life of my mother. Essentially, they eliminated that public health problem. And polio was a bad thing for years and years and decades. I mean, shit. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people would catch that and they'd like lose their ability to walk or whatever. You know, and now that's something that you don't even have to worry about now. It's like, when was the last time you met somebody who caught fucking polio? Never, right? So that was always sort of, and that's kind of a law everywhere in the country that, certain employers could require you to get vaccinated. Like for example, the United States military. If you're going to be in the military, you have to get vaccinated, right? Don't have a choice. If you're a nurse or a doctor, usually they would require you to get vaccinated. And that would be, you would think if you were a nurse or a doctor, you would understand the science behind vaccines. And you would want to promote them for the general health of people. And you would understand that, working in the medical field, that you'll be exposed to these, diseases more than anybody else, right? But yeah, lots of states now are actually starting to pass laws to defend the rights of people who don't want to get vaccinated. And basically defending the rights of people, the right to infect and kill others. That's what that is. Hey, and Shoma, what's happening, man? Thank you for joining. Go ahead, comment, guys, and of course I'll read all the comments at the end of the stream, as usual. This is Papa Smurf right here, so he gets to wear a red, hat and all that. Little commie Papa Smurf. You guys ever hear about that? The conspiracy theory that the Smurfs were communists, and the reason why Papa Smurf wore red is because he's like, Lenin or Mao or whatever. Yeah, that people actually believe that shit. Anyway, let's see. I need to make this smaller. Let's make that 5. Where were we? Okay, so we were talking about COVID passports. Yeah, so multiple states have enacted laws to prevent COVID, what they call COVID passports, right? And what that is basically a requirement that if you want to get a job, if you want your kid to go to school, if you, something like that, or if you're even a customer in a store, that they require you to have proof of vaccination, right? And you would think like, okay, well, why would, a customer, I mean, you can understand, okay, your kid going to school or something like that, but like a customer in a store, why would you want, like that kind of makes sense to me. Like you would say like, well, why would you require your customers to be vaccinated? That seems a little excessive, right? Well, let's say that you're a business owner and you have a precondition, you have your sandwich shop or whatnot, and you have you have a precondition that if you end up in the hospital, it's more likely you're going to die of COVID, right? Well, in the past, it's like, it's your store, and you kind of in the past have had the ability to refuse service for any reason, right? You ever go into a store and you see those signs that say no shirt, no shoes, no service? Same kind of deal. It's your store. It's, a free country. And if you want people to get vaccinated, as long as you're, you can refuse service for basically anything. right? As long as it's not a protected class, as long as you're not kicking somebody out because of their race or their, sexual orientation or some shit like that. But, you know, traditionally that's kind of how it's been. And so these laws are getting passed that basically say that they're trying to make the choice to be vaccinated, and trying to turn that into a protected class, essentially. Saying that, okay, well, now you have to serve someone if they're not vaccinated. You're unable to require someone to be vaccinated. So that means if you own a retail business, right, in these states, then you are now required by law to put yourself at risk, right? So basically it's like, okay, well, you either allow these people to potentially infect you and kill you, or you don't make money. That's the fucking choice that people are being forced to make here, right? So you're starting to see these sort of anti-vaccine passport laws in a lot of states. So far, there's been 7 states that I could see that have actually enacted these laws. Let's see, that would be Arkansas, Florida, Montana, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Utah, and Texas. Texas just passed it last week, so that's kind of very recent. Um, in Arkansas and Montana, you cannot require vaccination to be a requirement for employment. So you own a restaurant or something, you can't actually go to your employees and make them get vaccinated. That also counts for hospitals. So if you're a hospital or something and you happen to have one like wacky nurse who's an anti-vaxxer, then yeah, you are not, you can't force them to get vaccinated. The problem is that, well, let's say that doctor or that nurse actually catches the disease, right? Even though you can, they take precautions and stuff, right? Well, you know that the Rona has a 14-day incubation period through which you are communicable. So you could conceivably be passing this on to other people in that 14-day period, especially if you're in a hospital. So you're in a hospital where sick people go. So people who are not, don't have the Rona, right? Go there. People who have cancer, right? People who have emphysema, people who have all these other conditions that if they were to actually catch it, they would get complications and die, you know. So the Papa Smurf conspiracy, yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about it anyway. Um, we'll talk about it at the end of the stream. The Papa Smurf conspiracy. Anyway, but yeah, that's the problem. Is that people go to the hospital because they have to, right? Because they're sick and they're gonna die, and now you have the danger of doctors and nurses and stuff passing the disease off to these people that they're there to fucking protect. So that's like a problem, right? So it's not just Joe Blow in his fucking sandwich shop that, we're talking about here. It's like we're talking about actual, like, things like, institutions where sick people go, that this is going to put those people at risk. And it's going to result in these people getting sick and dying. And that's the thing. Each one of these laws that gets passed here has a body count, which is like the real danger behind all of this, Let's see. Florida also has that same thing. It prevents businesses, government agencies, and schools from requiring customers to provide proof of vaccination. So not only employees, but also customers, right? Florida also says that you can fine a business $5,000 per customer for anybody who violates this law, right? So that's pretty jacked up. One of the cases that's out there, you know, because you would think like, okay, why would you need your customers to be vaccinated? For example, cruise lines. That's one of the cases that, you know, you would want your customers to be vaccinated because they're going to be in an enclosed space for a long time. In fact, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Right, so cruise lines are an example of an industry that's being directly affected by this. Um, let's see, where was I? Montana has one that has prevents businesses from discriminating against um, customers depending on vaccinations, and also the same kind of deal. Employers cannot require their employees to get vaccinated as well. Alabama has the same thing as well. Also, that applies to schools. So in Alabama, you can't say that students or school staff or faculty have to be vaccinated. That has been a thing for ever. Ever. In fact, we just actually just talked about that, you know, where you weren't allowed to send your kid to school if they weren't vaccinated. Right? Well, not in, you know, not in Alabama anymore. Okay, so now there's also not just, you know, these types of anti-passport laws, I guess is what you would call these, right? This also is being extended to mask mandates, to shutdowns, things like that. Because, you know, all of this stuff, like, you know, if your state had a shutdown, that's something that the governor of the state is able to order with emergency powers, right? Governors have the ability to do stuff like that when it comes to public health. Or, like, let's say there's an emergency, you know, there's a wildfire, there's a hurricane, there's a asteroid fucking hits the earth, some shit like that. The governor can declare a state of emergency and say people stay in their homes, blah 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 blah, right? So, of course, Republicans don't like that because when people are forced to stay in their homes, that means they can't go to work. So now they're starting to pass lots of laws that are requiring. Actually, do they have? Okay, they actually have little brown stripes that go there. So, well, we'll work on that later. I'm not going to worry about that. Like they have little turtlenecks with brown stripes on them. So, anyway, so yeah, Republicans don't like that idea, so now a lot of these same states, these same southern red states, are starting to pass laws which are preventing, limiting the governor's emergency powers when it comes to pandemics. So basically saying that governors aren't allowed to do things like enact mask mandates, they're not allowed to put in curfews, they're not allowed to put in lockdowns, they're not allowed to stop public gatherings. That was another thing, right? Not so like a lot, and it's because like people are pissed because they weren't allowed to go to church or whatnot, right? So you're starting to see laws like this get passed so far in a lot of states: Indiana, Kentucky, North Dakota, Ohio. They've all passed laws restricting these sorts of executive emergency like powers, you know, like, well, not, I wouldn't say emergency powers, but like powers to mitigate an emergency, you know what I mean? And it's because, you know, because anti-vax peoples and Republicans are pissed because they want to go outside and they want to go to McDonald's and they want to get a 6-piece chicken McNuggets and shit, and they don't want to wear a mask because they're giant crybabies who have no compassion for anybody else except them fucking selves. And they think that since they're not 65 or whatever, that they're not at risk, but in real life, everybody is at fucking risk. And they don't understand this because they're science, you know, they have a tradition of denying science and shit for decades because they're a bunch of goddamn morons. I'm sorry, this is exactly what's happening. In Kansas, right, the governor of Kansas had to sign a compromise bill. Because in all these other states, what happened is that they tried to pass a bill, and the governor of each of those states I just mentioned, that I just mentioned, Alabama, Indiana, Kentucky, North Dakota, Ohio, all those states, they tried to pass a bill. The governor vetoed the bill, and then the legislatures of each one of those states overrode the governor's veto to remove these powers. In Kansas, in order to prevent that, the governor of Kansas signed a compromise bill that reduces emergency powers. Um, that we were just talking about, things like mass mandates, shutdowns, etc., blah, 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 blah. Same thing kind of happened in Texas. In Texas, actually, the governor of Texas is kind of down with it. This is Greg Abbott, who has delusions of grandeur and thinks he's going to be president of the United States one day. Hopefully he won't be. What color are their socks? Let me see. Do they... Okay, they have sort of brown striped socks. All right. So let's see. We'll get into that in a second. And then what color are their shoes? Their shoes are brown. They have brown shoes. Okay. Anyway. Where were we? Yeah, Texas, right? So he signed a usual vaccination, anti-passport thing, right? His bill also says that it denies government contracts to people. So because it's Texas, they like to give you the illusion that you have freedom, when in real life they just sort of impose their will on you. That's sort of how Texas works, right? They like to pretend that, oh yeah, Texas is free and you can do what you want, but if you don't do what we say, we're going to fucking punish you. And that's exactly what this bill does. So it says, all right, you can enact your vaccine passport, but if you do, you don't get any state contracts, number one. And then the state is also allowed to use your compliance with the bill when they're considering giving you licenses or licenses or permits or things like that. So let's say you want to get a liquor license, and if you require people to get vaccines, then they can just say, nope, we're not giving that to you, right? Which is bullshit. Okay, hang on a second. Let's just kind of move over to this guy. This is going to take a little while because this is like kind of a large, I don't know if we'll work on this through like the entire thing or what, or maybe if we'll start something else, but we'll see. This is kind of like this picture that I've had here is something that I've kind of had on the back burner for like a year now. You guys don't actually see like the majority of my work that I do, my artwork, never gets seen by anybody. Like I would say probably 98% of everything I've ever done has not been seen by anyone. I only kind of like put up like, the good stuff. Right? So maybe I should do that. Like I think one day before I die, like what I'm going to do is in my will, I'm going to, my artwork when I die will belong to my wife, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my will that everything I've ever drawn, I want it to be on a website and then just make it public domain. So anybody could use my images for whatever. I think that'll be a good legacy for when I'm like dead. So you could just take something I drew and put it on a t-shirt or whatever and just use it without having to pay. Of course, this will be up to my wife though. If she wants to charge people, that's totally her prerogative, and she should be allowed to make money off of it. But I think actually maybe eventually I would like all my stuff to go into the public domain. Anyway, getting back to the subject here. Sorry, a little bit of a side tangent on that. So yeah, right now in Texas, only about 42% of all adults have actually been vaccinated. But the governor there already actually put in some executive orders that ban state agencies from, creating public, like vaccine passports, right? They also passed another law in Texas saying that you're not allowed to close down a church. So if you have a public health emergency like this going forward, not allowed to close churches in Texas. You are also not allowed to close gun stores. because apparently the ability to buy a gun during a pandemic is a protected thing now. I guess when the Rona-infected zombies show up at your privately run white supremacist fucking compound and shit, you need to be able to defend yourself, you know, because you're an idiot and you think that fucking Walking Dead is like a documentary or some shit. What the fuck is wrong with people, man? That was another thing that during like the stimulus checks, you know, that we saw through last year, like there was a spike in gun sales because fucking idiots were taking the checks they were getting from the government that were there to supposed to help you from like, you know, getting evicted from your house and shit like that, and they were buying guns with it. It's like, god damn it. Why the fucking conservatives are so fucking stupid? Like, I don't know. Anybody who bought a gun with a goddamn stimulus check deserves to get punched in the face. It's like the dumbest fucking thing you can possibly do. I guess, you know, I guess the lesson is next time there's a pandemic, open a gun store. I guess that's the lesson. You want to make money and shit. That's fucking ridiculous. Anyway, okay, there were other bills in Texas for this last, you know, congressional session in Texas, right? I guess you call it the state legislative session. And there were plenty of bills that didn't get passed, including ones that would have updated the state's immunization registry. Another one that would have created a mass vaccination and distribution plan. And then also one that would have funded research into health equity issues related to racial inequalities and in order to address those things. Those are all bills that didn't pass. So common sense things that actually sound good, that sound like that would have helped people, those things didn't pass. But the ability to buy a gun during a fucking pandemic passed like a charm. So that kind of goes to show what conservatives in Texas actually really fucking care about, which is ridiculous as hell. Anyway, so, you know, there's always kind of been anti-vax people, you know, pretty much since vaccines were a thing. There's been anti-vax people. And you can kind of understand why. It's because when people don't understand the science of vaccines, it sounds scary. You know, a vaccine is essentially taking a weak or dead version of a virus and injecting it into someone to get an immune response, so that way you get antibodies going around, and then when you actually one day do get exposed to that virus, you're prepared and your body's able to fight it off. That's essentially what a vaccine is, right? In, you know, the layman's understanding, right? And that sounds scary to people that don't understand what the science behind that is, you know. Sounds like, oh, you're going to inject me with a virus. Well, no thank you, right? And there's always been kind of like this sort of anti-vax movement going back from forever. The modern anti-vax movement kind of started in the 90s, and it actually came from the left wing, believe it or not. You know, it came from the sort of hippie kind of natural you know, ingredients kind of people, you know, the people that shop at Whole Foods and only want to get like organic fucking green beans and that kind of thing. And you know, there were a couple of studies that have been widely debunked now in the 90s, talking about how you know, you link vaccines to autism, stuff like that. You know, there were kind of these shysters that like pretended that like, oh, my kid got autism, or there was another girl who like pretended that she had some kind of like weird ass fucking you know, side effect that fucked up the way she walked, and then like later on they find out that she was faking it, stuff like that. So that's kind of been a thing forever, for decades, you know, the anti-vax thing. And they've kind of really like gained a lot of followers and a lot of steam since, you know, the pandemic started, right? And it's become kind of, you know, because up until that point, like, it started on the left, you know, And because of conspiracy theories and stuff like that, anti-vaxxing conspiracy theories and saying that it's like, it's all injecting nanoprobes into you and that kind of fucking bullshit, or that it's like, changing your DNA, that kind of thing. It slowly kind of started becoming a thing that you saw right-wingers engage in. And as of right now, it seems like, at least with the COVID vaccine, it seems to be almost exclusively something you see on the right wing now. Right. Um, it's pretty bad, right? Let's see, where was I? Because it's become a social issue now, you know. Whereas before, anti-vaxxers were just kind of like basically synonymous with conspiracy theorists, right? Now it's become a social issue. So there is a very, very large, um, I guess, community of right-wing nutcase conspiracy theorist insane people that have been growing and growing and growing even before Trump came along, and now are just like in overdrive, the QAnon kind of people, right? They've always kind of been around, and now they're just like, you know, now it's something like 39% of all Republicans now believe in QAnon, which is just like disturbingly ridiculous, you know, ridiculous and disturbing, and does not bear well for our country's survival, in my opinion. I basically think the United States is like done with. And I wouldn't be surprised that if within 20 years the United States collapses the same way the Soviet Union did, but that's a discussion for another stream. But anyway, just to kind of show, right now how it's like the at least the COVID vaccine is almost, oh shit, there's still some at the bottom here. At least the COVID vaccine is almost like exclusively supported by just right wingers and Republicans. Something like 80. I think it's 80%. Let me see. Let me see here. Where is it? Okay, here we go. As of last month, right? 29% of Republicans refused to get vaccinated as of last month. So you say, okay, well, the majority of them have it. Well, roughly 56% of Republicans are fully vaccinated, and then with another like 6% or so saying that they're going to, get the second shot, and 29% of them no shots at all. Well, you think that's kind of a low number compared to Democrats. 80% of Democrats have been vaccinated. Right? So, and only 5% of Democrats plan to not get vaccinated. Right. Now, keep in mind, there are legitimate reasons for not wanting to be vaccinated. You have a pre-existing condition, you're allergic to vaccines, stuff like that. Right. Like, that's a legit reason. I have a chronic illness that says if I get vaccinated, it could complicate it, blah, blah, blah. And the doctor tells you not to get it, right? So, but how many people out there actually have those types of chronic illnesses? Not very many. Would you say 5%? I'm sure some of that 5% of people, of Democrats, are conspiracy theorists. But, 5% compared to 29%, right? 29% of all Republicans is millions and millions of people. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Okay, what we need to do is we need to make another layer beneath this and kind of start filling in the background a little bit. Let's see. Let's start with the sky. Nice blue sky, but it should be something like this. Right. Let's just sort of edit, fill that. All right. Then let's go here, get a little bit of darker stuff, and let's go to layer. Let's make a new layer, and we'll just make this a gradient. Let's let's see, make that a little tighter. Reverse that. Actually, no, that should be the other way around. Like that. Maybe a little tighter. There we go. Okay, let's merge that down. There we go. And then let's put, let's see. You'd say the ground should be roughly green, right? But let's make it a different green than the hair of our, let's see, let's fill that. Should be a different green than the hair of our Oompa Loompas here. Layer, new fill later, gradient, and then reverse that. Right. That looks about right. Merge that down. And then we'll call this background 2. Then let's make another layer. I usually don't name layers, but it's a good idea to keep stuff organized. Like, can save time rather than having to click through and trying to find the right layer or whatever. It looks like shit right now, but, you know, once we start filling all this stuff in, it'll look better. Anyway, let's see. Where were we? Oh, yeah. So there's another question here. Should the vaccine be mandated by employers? 39% of Republicans say yes. 80% of Democrats say yes to that. So, yeah. So that's why we're seeing all of these sort of laws and stuff getting passed in all of these red states, right? It's because the anti-vaxxers, these are the Republican constituents, right? And one thing you can say about you know, conservative politicians is that they don't waste any opportunity to appear to be doing something to help their constituents. You always notice that they never actually do anything that actually ever really helps their constituents. You know, they never do anything to, say, help their working conditions or help them to vote or give them money during a pandemic. They never do anything like that. But when it comes to these dumbass social issues, they jump all over it. You know, they always, they're very, very eager to restrict voting rights, for example. Very eager to pass laws to allow people to get run over at BLM protests, for example. That's another thing we could talk about, you know. There are actual laws that got passed saying it's cool to run people over, right? They're always willing and able to do stuff like that. That stuff gets passed really fast. And the sad thing is that now, you know, it's a pandemic. It's stopped being a social health issue, and it's become a social issue. It's become another front in the fucking culture war that Republicans can exploit in order to get elected, right? You know, and it's just another way for the fucking MAGA chuds and the red hats and the conservative assholes to make money, and for people like Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro and shit to rile up their followers, get likes on fucking Twitter or whatnot, get people to tune in, listen to them rant and rave every fucking, you know, day or whatever. And another way for like sleazy fucking politicians to like actually appear to be doing something without actually ever doing anything. You ever notice how conservatives and Republicans and stuff, you know, it's like they kind of purposely go out of their way to not actually change anything, you know, at all, ever. And it's like, I guess that's why they call them conservatives. They want to conserve, you know, the status quo or whatnot. But it's actually really true. Anything that comes up that can ever improve the quality of life for anyone, they're against it, you know. And it's like, you know, it's because they don't want it's anything that would require raising taxes. You know, it's like you don't have to like raise taxes in order to tell people to, you know, to ban vaccine passports. In fact, that actually helps businesses a lot, at least the big businesses, because then, you know, they can force their fucking workers to go back to work or whatnot. It's bullshit. Anyway, so yeah, and you'll notice the support that you get from the Republicans is roughly 39%, right? So there are people, like we said there before, probably people that object to this because, you know, they have pre-existing conditions, blah, 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 right? But a large number of those people are doing it just because they want to own the libs. And that's something that we really, I think we underestimate that a lot. 39%. That roughly corresponds to Hillary Clinton's deplorables. You know, do you remember that back in 2016, Hillary Clinton made that remark, you know, roughly half of the Republicans are good people, and then the other half are deplorables. And it's kind of like, you know, people made fun of her for that and all whatever, but poll after poll, year after year, it seems like Hillary Clinton is always right. You know, these are the people that, for example, the coal rollers. You know, we talked about them last time. You know, those dipshits that tune their cars to make them as dirty as fucking possible, so that they can just spew out like tons and tons of, like, you know, pollution into the air on purpose because it pisses off liberals, things like that, you know, so that they can purposely, you know, oh shit, there's a gap right there, you gotta fix that, you know, they can purposely like fucking, you know, contribute more to global warming and stuff because it makes some hippie in fucking San Francisco cry or whatever. Right? That's why. You know, and in the meantime, like, their entire fucking town burns down from a wildfire or whatever, you know, right after their house, you know, gets flooded or whatnot. It's such bullshit, right? These are those same people. These are the same people that, you know, for example, they go out and they'll wear T-shirts saying, "I'm a deplorable," blah 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 blah. You know, these are the people that science and logic don't work on these people, and shame doesn't work either. You know, and so most people when you shame them will kind of maybe reconsider their stance on something. If you make a compelling case enough and you hit them in an emotional way, most people will, and especially the emotional part. If you manage to resonate with somebody in an emotional way, like say one of these people had a grandmother who died from COVID or something, and if you talk to them and you say, hey, other people's grandmothers are going to die from it, and most people will like reconsider their stance and be like, okay, maybe I was wrong, blah blah blah. I know how it feels when you have a grandmother that dies. But these people, the deplorables, those are the ones that shit doesn't work on either. They literally do not give a fuck, even when it happens to them, even when they're personally affected. They still don't care, because they're kind of the bottom of the barrel. The people that the educational system has you know, failed, the true sociopaths. And it's like about 40% of Republicans are true sociopaths. Right? These are the people that are preventing our country from advancing. They're preventing us from getting any kind of decent, you know, climate change legislation. They're stopping us from getting infrastructure bills going. You know, things that would give them jobs, right? Stuff like that. This is stuff that will give them jobs. You know, they're stopping retraining people like coal miners and stuff, you know, in Virginia, stopping them from being retrained, stopping federal money from going to give these people job training. It's like, well, fuck, dude, your job in the coal mine is going away. It's gone. It's not coming back. And it's like, you know, it wasn't even legislation that stopped it. It's just fucking people aren't using coal anymore. So unless your ass doesn't want to be working at a fucking, you know, Taco Bell or some shit, you need some job training. But they don't care, you know. They're preventing all of this stuff. They're preventing they're preventing problems from being solved because they want to piss off liberals, because that's their fucking priority. Their priority is to make people that they don't know in California angry. Because Tucker fucking Carlson told them that California is a cesspool or some shit. It's the most ridiculous thing ever, and that's really why our country is heading down the fucking tubes, because of these people. This 40% of fucking people that don't want the ability for a private business to force people to get vaccinated if you're to not do business with people that they choose not to do business with. And I just don't understand that shit. And that's kind of like, like if there was a left-leaning person, like a liberal or a progressive making that argument, I can understand it because there's precedent. You're not allowed to not serve somebody, for example, because of a protected class, their sexual orientation or something like that, their race, whatever. You're not allowed to refuse to make a cake for somebody because you don't support gay marriage, shit like that. And I can understand it. It logically follows from that viewpoint. But from the right wing viewpoint, that doesn't follow at all. The right wing viewpoint is that the business owner should be allowed to do whatever the hell they want. They should be able to kick people out for whatever reason they want, because it's their business, and if you don't like it, you can suck dick. And it's like, well, except when it comes to shit we don't like. Right? Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, you have all the rights in the world except when it comes to stuff that we don't like. Now we're just going to impose our fucking will on you. And it's like, that's kind of they're the biggest fucking hypocrites on the face of the earth. And it pisses me off. And the reason why it pisses me off is because, I want shit to go back to normal. I met just this past 4th of July. I met the people that, because I got a new job. I've been working remotely. I met them for the first time in a year. And it was cool. It was like, oh, wow, I got to actually go to the office that I should have been working at this whole time and see how awesome it is. It's got a cafeteria. It has a gymnasium, which is crazy. The gym that's at the office that I'm supposed to be working at is like better than like the one at like the LA Fitness that's over here. It's crazy. Right? And I got to meet all these people face to face, and it was like, oh, hey, what's up? Nice to meet you for the first time after a year. And, and that kind of got me after that. I was like, wow, this is just how abnormal it is to not be face to face with people. And don't get me wrong, I like working from home and shit. It's great. I like being able to, for example, at lunchtime, go to my own kitchen and like make something. I like that. I like to be able to like, oh, it's like if it's lunchtime and I want to take a nap. Yeah, because I do that all the time, right? Like, it's nice to, like, I can take a nap in my own bed for an hour because it's lunch, something like that. Or if I have to go to the bathroom, I can go to my own bathroom and not have to be in, like, some weird, like, office bathroom and not have to be all paranoid that some coworker is going to hear me farting or something. Like, that's, like, great, but it's also very wrong, and it's not, it's also kind of like you kind of need face-to-face contact with people in order to treat them, in order to understand that they're human beings, right? And that's what it really kind of hit me. It's like, wow, like I kind of miss this face-to-face interaction. My friend here in Shoma that's in the chat, I haven't seen this guy in a year. We've done streams and stuff over the past year. We haven't gotten together in a fucking year. It's like, dude, I miss, and it's like, well, I miss this face-to-face interaction. You know what I mean? I went and saw the Black Widow, last Saturday, and like it was like in a movie theater, and it was like, holy fuck, I'm in a movie theater. It's awesome, and I don't have to worry about dying. All of last year, I didn't go to the movies. I went to the movies once last year when Godzilla vs. Kong came out. I saw that in the theater, right? And that was like sketchy as hell, and I had my mask on, and I was like afraid to like take it off and like all this other shit. And now when I went and saw Black Widow, it was like I felt free. And these people with their fucking refusal to, believe basic science, right? They're the ones that are preventing all of this shit from coming back. They're the ones that are preventing us from going back to normal. They're the ones that are making it so that it's dangerous to go to the movies or to work in an office or to see your fucking friend, that you haven't seen in a year. That's why it pisses me off. It's like, and now shit's increasing, and it's only a matter of time right? It's only a matter of time before the results, like the actions of these assholes, results in spawns like another variant of the Rona, and this time the fucking, what the chances are that, like, this time another variant's gonna spawn, and this variant is gonna not be like vaccine effective, and we're gonna have to go through this shit all over again. That's the fucking fucked up thing. It's like, it'll happen. It'll happen if these assholes don't, like, why do you think we have colds every fucking year? We don't have a vaccine against the common cold. Well, COVID-19 is actually related to the common cold. It's the same kind of virus, right? So why do we not have a cold vaccine? It's because, it mutates. Well, the Rona is already fucking mutated. And is this going to have to be a thing that happens every year? Every year around, are we going to have COVID season every year? And like, and we're gonna have to lock down for 3 to 6 months every fucking year? If we don't want that to happen, then these assholes need to get vaccinated. that's how we stop that shit from happening, right? So, oh wait a minute, I was on the wrong. Wait a minute, did I just do all of that on the wrong background layer? Okay, good, I didn't. All right, that's fine. All right, let's just move this over here then. Step backwards, edit, step backwards. There we go. Okay, that's also why I love Photoshop, because you can just undo like that. Anyway, fuck, okay. Well, it's already 1, but since we started late, we'll continue on for a little bit. So, you're starting to see this thing where anti-vaxxers are starting to take this idea that they're oppressed, and that's what they're trying to turn it into. They're trying to take this opportunity to make vaccination a protected class. And you're seeing like lots of language, saying that it's discrimination against people who choose not to get vaccinated, stuff like that. A really, really disturbing thing is I'm starting to see lots of Holocaust imagery, which is like really screwed up. Just to kind of give you an example of some things. This here is this is a protest. I can't remember exactly where this is. I think this is in Israel. I think, but not exactly sure. But you're seeing here. Wait a minute. Is this actually showing up? Am I not sharing? Okay, there we go. Okay, it's there. You'll notice the Star of Davids that we're seeing here. Let me make this a little bigger. You'll notice the Star of Davids, the comparing vaccine mandates to Nazis in the background, right? Which is really funny because, white supremacists and stuff also tend to be anti-vaxxers. You're seeing that as well. People like Nick Fuentes and stuff like that, they also tend to be anti-vaxxers as well, just because they're anti-government assholes, right? But yeah, that's some scary stuff. So it's sort of like, comparing like the idea that you don't want to take a drug which will save your life is just the exact same thing as people being put into gas chambers and murdered in an industrial capacity. Let me just turn that one off. Let's see. Here's another one. This is a lady in, I think in Tennessee, who is selling these little Star of Davids things. So, and you notice the edges, how the edges are rough like that. That's because back in the 40s, the badges that Jewish people were forced to wear in Nazi Germany had that same sort of rough edge. So that's what she's going for, right? Of course, she denied this. I can't remember this woman's name. I didn't write it down. This woman has since apologized for this, but is actually still selling the badges there on her online shop. We looked at that one. Here's another example. Wait a minute. I can't make that one bigger, but you can see it says no COVID certificates. Another example there. Another sign. I think this was in Israel as well, you know, basically saying, another anti-vaccination thing. And then, so you can see this is kind of like, it's not just in the United States, it's worldwide. But yeah, starting to see some very disturbing sort of like Holocaust kind of, comparisons here. That was something from Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is our current sort of, you know, um, wacky Republican nutcase. Seems like every Congress we have one or two like insane Republicans, but usually they tend to be women, you know? And I don't know why that is, like I think I don't know, like you remember Michelle Bachmann for a little while was like the insane person, and now it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it's like I don't know why I mean, maybe it's because they're women and it's a little bit of sexism going there that the media focuses on these people. But she definitely seems to fit the part. And anyway, Marjorie Taylor Greene made some comments talking about how it was, compared anti-vaxxers. And I mean, she made some comments talking about vaccinations and the mask mandate. Specifically, the mask mandate in the House of Representatives. Whoa! What the fuck was that? Wait a second. What was that? That, holy shit. Well, either some fireworks just went off, or somebody just shot somebody. I think that was fireworks. That was scary. Anyway, yeah, I don't see anybody outside running away or lying on the ground dead, so hopefully those were just fireworks. Let's fill this up. I don't know. I guess if the cops show up in a few minutes, we'll find out. Fill that. Yeah, so what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Here's a quote from her this past May 22nd, where she compared the mask mandate to to the Holocaust specifically. Let me read this out for you. You know, we can look back at a time in history where people were told to wear a gold star, and they were definitely treated like second-class citizens, so much that they were put in trains and taken to gas chambers in Nazi Germany. And this is exactly the type of abuse that Nancy Pelosi is talking about. She has since walked that back, but not really, because, Republicans never actually really, apologize for anything. But she had this big speech where she kind of made this ridiculous non-apology, and apparently said that she visited Auschwitz when she was 19, which kind of shows like, okay, so you've actually been there. You know what the Holocaust is all about. You should know that it has absolutely no comparison whatsoever with, trying to get people to take a life-saving vaccine. And that kind of shows how much of an empty fucking headed idiot simpleton this woman actually is. Please remember that Marjorie Taylor Greene ran unopposed. So if we could next time, can somebody please run against her next time? Just anybody. I'm getting the feeling that anybody could beat her now. Like we could just get like a wooden sawhorse with like a mop on its head and a tutu and shit. Name it like, Dave. And then like vote for that, and that will probably beat fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene, like, Dave the fucking tutu wearing sawhorse and shit. Anyway, so now there's also an effort from Joe Biden. Joe Biden wants to send people door to door in order to get vaccinated, and I kind of admit that that's a little strange, but the thing about it is that you would not be required to get it, right? And it could help some people. There can be people out there that just haven't gotten around to it. There could be people that, haven't had time or whatever, or maybe they don't have cars. Maybe people who want to get it and haven't been able to take the time off work, blah, 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 shit like that. So it could help people. Of course, that's caused all of the conservative pundit talking head assholes to lose their minds as well. Tucker Carlson calling that a massive, like the greatest scandal he's ever seen. I think that was the actual quote, which is, ridiculous as hell. I don't see how trying to get people to take a fucking vaccine is even considered a scandal. Laura Ingraham called that creepy. And it just kind of goes to show it's like, these are people that, remember, during the last year, they were begging for the vaccine. These are people that when Donald Trump was saying that the vaccine's coming and it's going to be great and all this other stuff, they were all over it. And just remember, if he were the president now, these would be people that would be telling people to get vaccinated because, why? Because Donald Trump would be saying the vaccine is the greatest thing ever, and he'd be trying to take credit for it. And just kind of like he was sort of trying to take credit for it when, like, because it came out like right at the tail end of his presidency and shit, and he was like trying to take credit for it and stuff, and now he can't, so that's why, like, he's shitting all over it now because it makes Joe Biden look good. So it's all politics, and that's the shitty thing. It's like it became highly politicized. Because make no mistake, the reason why it's like this, the reason why all the Republicans, 29% of Republicans don't want to take it, refuse to ever fucking take it and all that stuff, and why people like Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson are against vaccinating door to door. The reason why all this is happening is because of Donald Trump. And, kind of all of through last year, when the, pandemic started and stuff, Donald Trump was putting down the, okay, there's a gap right there also. I had to scan this in pieces, that's why it's all jacked up. But Donald Trump was putting down, the importance of vaccinations, that kind of thing. Right. And basically just belittling the, belittling COVID-19 completely. And what he was trying to do was basically kind of distract people from his incredibly bad handling of the pandemic. From day one. Like, because we all got to remember, it wasn't just like, he suddenly like blew it in the last like 3 months of his presidency or some shit like that. Pretty much from day one, they were it was very, very badly handled. And he downplayed it, since it started. In March, he said he actually had an interview with Bob Woodward and basically said that, oh shit, wrong, step backwards. He had an interview with Bob Woodward, and basically said that that's what he was doing. He was downplaying it because he didn't want people to panic, which I can understand that, but still, at the same time, if you remember last year, Trump was saying it was going to go away. It's going to go away. It's not as bad as it seems, right? It'll be gone by April. And then April rolls around and he says it'll be gone by March. And then March rolls around and it's like it'll be gone by the summer. The heat will kill it. And then the summer comes. And then, by that point we have 200,000 people who are dead. And he's like promoting fucking like UV lights and fishbowl cleaner and shit. Right? And blaming Dr. Fauci because Fauci told people to wear masks and, all this stuff, right? And it was just like, God, fucking so ridiculous. And then, Trump also said that we only had so many cases because we have more testing in the country. Please remember that. Let me save. It's a good idea. And although it's supposed to auto-save, it's a good idea to occasionally manually save as well. He basically said that we have the best testing and that's why we have so many cases, right? Halfway through of last year, in May, he pulled out of the World Health Organization. He like stopped funding for the World Health Organization, right? During the middle of a pandemic, he stopped funding for the World Health Organization, stopped coordinating with them, right? And it was because they wouldn't get with his messaging. He was essentially at that point, as of last May, blaming the entire thing on China, calling it the Chinese virus and shit like that, calling it a democratic hoax, whatever, right? And he wanted the WHO to get on board with that, and they wouldn't do it, And so he cuts funding to the WHO, right? So it was all politics, and it was all the way up until, the election. Like, if you remember in fucking October, after he caught COVID, which he was, he just spent 6 months telling all these people that it's not bad and that you can, that it'll be gone, it'll go away, it'll be all right, blah, 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 blah. Then he fucking catches it, right, in October. And new information has come out, which I don't know if you guys heard about this, but apparently Donald Trump almost died from COVID, Like, apparently he was very close to actually kicking the bucket when that shit happened. And, and it was because he had this experimental therapy that has not been enabled or released for anybody else, right? He got this experimental therapy that basically saved his life, right? And you would think, like, okay, well, now that you've caught the shit, you know how bad it is, maybe now you'll go out and you'll tell people to wear a mask. You'll tell people to get fucking... Because we had the vaccine in, I think we did have the vaccine, actually, no, we didn't have it until end of November, so not at that point. But you would tell people to wear masks, you would tell people to socially distance and all that shit, and he didn't do that. He came out after he almost fucking bought the farm and told people that it was nothing to worry about. And he said something like, I feel better than ever, blah, blah, blah. And, kind of gave that sort of message like, if I can beat it, you can beat it. We have nothing to be afraid of, blah, 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 blah. And that, and I can understand what he was trying to do is basically trying to assure people that he was fine. Because even a piece of shit president like Donald Trump dying would be a major fucking problem. Don't get me wrong. It's not a good thing for the president of the United States to die, even if he is the worst president of all time. But still, you think that he would, like, take that experience and do a little bit of fucking introspection and then tell people the real truth about what's actually going on and how dangerous the disease is and that you shouldn't take it lightly, but he didn't fucking do that. He came out and he said the exact fucking opposite to, like, because his goddamn ego is too big because we elected a fucking sociopath. Right? And then, right around the election time, in November, he went like full anti-lockdown, anti-mask, right? He said that 2 weeks after he caught COVID, this is in October, 2 weeks after Donald Trump got sick and almost fucking, bit it, right? They were considering slashing funds for treating COVID-19 to states, right, such as California, to liberal states, right, that he deemed as anarchist jurisdictions. And this was a way to basically threaten the states to clamp down on BLM and, protests, George Floyd protests, right. So he was basically using, funds to fight the pandemic in order to force states to, like, crack down harder on protesters because he thought the protests were going to basically result in him losing the election. I mean, it's the most despicable fucking shit ever. Like, people, like, talk about, just the other day, as a little side anecdote, I had a little argument on Reddit because I go on Reddit and I fucking insult conservatives and shit. It's like a hobby of mine. Anyway, I was on Reddit and I had a little, back and forth with a guy because I called Donald Trump the worst president of all time. And he said, well, what did he do that was worse than the Iraq War? And I'm like, well, shit like this, in my opinion, is up there with the Iraq War. It's despicable. I mean, maybe it doesn't have, like, the same body count as the Iraq War does. Because, remember, we don't actually know how many people died because of the Iraq War. But still, using, like, funding to fight a pandemic in order to force the governors of the state to crack down on protesters. Just listen to that shit, man. That's, like, that should be illegal right there. How could you vote for somebody that fucking does something like that? It's the most despicable, disgusting, like, backhanded, sneaky ass, fucking thing that I can like think of, you know. So yeah, I stand by my fucking statement. I think Trump was worse than Bush. I mean, shit, Bush didn't try to overthrow the fucking United States government, did he? Hell no. Right? So, anyway, getting close to the election, yeah, like Trump went nuts trying to blame, lockdowns on Biden, saying that we wouldn't have a Christmas, we wouldn't have a 4th of July, you know, that November 2nd. This is a quote from Donald Trump on November 2nd. Joe Biden is promising to delay the vaccine and turn America into a prison state, locking you in your home while letting far-left rioters roam free. The Biden lockdown will mean no school, no graduations, no weddings, no Thanksgiving, no Christmas, no 4th of July. Right. Then that same day, another quote, we have more cases because we have more testing. So it's like, in case anybody forgot what Trump was actually all about there, even as late as that, as late as 2 days before the fucking election, or however many days that was, still spouting the same bullshit, right? Still like fucking, shit that's putting people in danger. Okay, it should be that layer here. So that's why. This is why all the Republicans now don't want to get vaccinated, because their fucking dear leader, told them not to. Spent a year telling them that they weren't gonna, that it was no big deal. They had nothing to worry about. All this other shit. It's gonna go away. Everything's gonna be cool. And then when none of that shit happened, he like went full fucking like, anti-lockdown, anti-mask, and like, just to blame it on anybody, the bad response, trying to blame it on anybody but him. It's China's fault. It's the WHO's fault. It's Biden's fault. It's the Democrats' fault. It's all a hoax. It's all Democratic hoax. Blah blah blah. Right. I don't know. It makes me sick. It makes me sick to my stomach just to see how ridiculous our country is. And it's like, was America always like this? Like, this guy has very big socks. The other guys don't have socks that are this big, but this dude does. Anyway, was America always like this? Like, could I, if I were to go back in time to the 60s or the 50s or whatever, I suspect yes. I suspect America was always ridiculous and fucked up like this because we've always had conservatives. And I think it's just magnified because they are, they have access to social media. And, in the past, the conservative elite had always managed to just exploit these people and keep them in the background. And now it's like they're, the insane people are actually in positions of power now. And I think that's what's new. In the past, we didn't have people like Louis Gohmert or Donald Trump or, fucking, what's her name? Lauren Boebert, right? Or fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like, people like that wouldn't have ever have even gotten within 10 feet of power, And now they are. Now they're in power. I think that's the difference, is that we're actually seeing, like, what happens when insane people hold the fucking levers of, oh wow, this green is too close to that green. Let's just change this green. Let's make that darker. So anyway, fucking giving me a headache, man. And I don't understand it, because, you have, well, shit. Okay, we're already at 1:15. I was going to do a segment here on reasons why people are anti-vax and get into some conspiracy theories. But why don't we save that for next time? Why don't we make that... I might actually do an individual video talking about vaccine conspiracy theories. That might be a good subject for video. But while we're here, let's read some of the comments here, since we're getting close to the end. Let's see. Starting up at the top. Blah, blah, blah. Moving up. Lewis the Hedgehog. Let's see. You would normally think that this pandemic would be the last nail in the coffin for the anti-vax movement, but nope, people still find a way to be stupid. Yes, unfortunately. And it's all due to emotions. That's what it is, People are pissed off. People are pissed off because they spent a year not being able to do the things they like to do. And it's like, ultimately, you gotta, ultimately, most people don't really change very much from when they're children, if you really think about it. If you look at what makes people angry and the behavior they engage in and stuff, even when they're adults, they tend to act like children. And this is one of those things, you see like this proliferation of like crazy Karens and stuff, you know, that's not a new phenomenon. The whole Karen thing where you see all these videos of like angry, well, mostly white women, but they're not all white women. Not all Karen videos are white women. Some of them are even men. Some of them are even people of color sometimes, you know. But it seems like the white women ones are the ones that get popular. But you still see lots of other people of other races and sexes and things, you know. And it seems like every time you see one of these sort of Karen videos, it's always a person who's pissed off over one thing or another because they're not getting something they want, you know. They're mad because a guy's walking his dog without wearing a, without, putting a leash on it. They're mad because somebody in the store or whatever fucking is not blah, 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 right? Whatever, stuff like that. They're always angry at shit that they're not, some behavior, they're mad because somebody at a fucking restaurant or whatever doesn't want to serve them because they don't want to wear a mask, you know. And it's like basically just some fucking overgrown child throwing a fit. That's what all those videos are. That's what all Karen videos are. They're basically just an overgrown fucking adult, a child in an adult's body throwing a fit because they're not getting something they want. And that behavior's nothing new, not really. I mean, that's why people fight in public. You ever just encounter two people brawling in public for whatever reason? Why do people fight? Because one person's an asshole and wants to pick on another person for whatever reason. And, like children. Right? Like you do, like the same, it's ultimately the same reason why children in a schoolyard fight. One kid's picking on another kid, and the kid that's getting picked on decides to fight back instead of getting picked on every fucking day. And that's why. And it's like, because ultimately adults are just really children plus 20 years, That's it. And I don't know. I guess that's something that we can all identify in ourselves and trying to understand in ourselves whenever you get really pissed off enough to actually yell at somebody in public. It's always a good idea, I think, at least to take stock of the situation and be like, what is actually yelling at this person going to accomplish? Are they really going to serve me a burrito when it's breakfast time if I yell loud enough? Probably not, etc., etc. But anyway, moving on, sorry. Lewis a Hedgehog. In my state, the number of daily vaccinations is slowing down, and yet barely even 40% of people are fully vaccinated yet. Come on, people. Yeah, exactly. It's disturbing. It's disturbing, and I guess what you can do personally is just encourage people to get vaccinated. That's the thing. It's like, yes, I myself would not be supportive of a mandatory vaccination. Like if the government came out and said everybody must get vaccinated or you're going to go to jail, I wouldn't support that. It should be a choice. It should also be the choice of a business in order to require you to get vaccinated to walk in that door. I believe that as well. It should also be if a state says, okay, well, if you work for the state, you have to get vaccinated. Oh, wait, there shouldn't be a fingernail there, huh? Because he's wearing gloves. This should be, like, empty. Oh, wait a minute. Wrong thing. Sorry. Need to erase this fingernail. But anyway, yeah, like, I still think, like, say, for example, if you're a teacher, like, the state could say, okay, if you have these types of jobs, you have to be vaccinated. Because traditionally, states have had that power. If you're a teacher, you got to be vaccinated. If you're a student going to school, you got to be vaccinated. Stuff like that. This is all things that people, for decades, we've not had this problem. Can you imagine if somebody, we were talking about polio earlier, if back in the 30s and 40s or whatever, when they came up with the polio vaccine, can you imagine if enough people managed to stop implementation of that vaccine, how we would still have polio today? That would still be a thing to worry about. And we'd still have people in wheelchairs and shit because of polio. Like, seriously, it doesn't make any fucking sense to me. But, you know, I can see, maybe there's some people that can't get that vaccine, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's your religion. I can even understand that. I could say, okay, if it's your religious belief that you don't get a vaccination, that's fine. There should be exemptions. But at the same time, that means you don't get to be a teacher. That means you don't get to work for this industry. That means you don't get to be a nurse. Blah, 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 blah. So, I don't know. And I think we're really kind of just losing sight of what actually fucking matters here. Right? Because it's all become so heavily politicized. It's like fucking dumb. It's just so dumb. It's like, god damn it, people. What the fuck is the matter with you guys? Anyway. Let's fill in that. Alright, I need to zoom out here a little bit. Let's see, what else? In Shomba, from my experience in construction, a lot of these anti-vaxxer types don't care about anything in the real world unless it affects them directly and alone. You hear horror stories how even on their COVID deathbeds, anti-vaxxers still believe it's all a hoax. Yeah, what the fuck? I saw that too. Like, I actually I saw a video on that on YouTube about how people that believe it's a hoax will be laying there dying, about to fucking go to that fucking happy hunting grounds or whatever, and I don't know, is that racist? Should I not say happy hunting grounds? About to kick the bucket, buy the farm, whatever, right? And still believe that it's fake. They still think that, maybe they're dying of something else. Because, why? Because Trump told them it was a hoax. That's why. And it's like, god damn it, dude. You're, on death's door for crying out loud. Time to stop pretending. I used to think that people that believed in conspiracy theories, deep down inside, all knew that it was bullshit. You know what I mean? I used to think that. The same way that, I don't know, when I was a kid, I never really believed in the Easter Bunny. I never really believed in Santa Claus. I never really believed in the fucking, leprechaun at the end of the fucking rainbow, whatever. I always kind of, in my head, knew that it was make-believe. It was pretend. It was like Star Wars or He-Man or G.I. Joe or something. There's really no difference, And even as I became an adult, belief in religion kind of joined to that category. Never really truly, if I look back, I never really thought. I always thought it was kind of it was all pretend. And I guess there are people that actually believe it. They actually fucking when it comes to conspiracy theories, especially conspiracy theories, it's there's always a chance that, your conspiracy theory is horseshit, but I guess there's people that just buy this stuff hook, line, and sinker, and it's really because the conspiracy theories have become a religion. That's why. So, I guess it's as they were growing up, they never sufficiently developed that bullshit meter, or whatever, right? Let's see. Okay, yeah, now we're going to talk. Okay, Mark, I try my best to attend your streams. As for the Papa Smurf conspiracy, I think it's just simple 1980s Americans reading way too much into the fiction like scholars trying to justify otherwise. Otherwise, terrible creative choices in movies and televisions without considering simple possibilities like the head writer was drunk or that the staff was just rushing in to fill a season quota. Yeah, well, I think the Smurfs are communist thing. I thought that was a joke, but back in the 80s, people actually did believe shit like that. The same way you had that sort of satanic panic in the 80s, you also had a lot of sort of commie, panics and stuff, kind of a holdover from the 50s. So, although I don't think I've ever actually seen, like a documentary or anything on TV about the Smurfs being communist, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if we did see, like, if somebody out there eventually could dig up, say, like a religious program or something, or like a Rush Limbaugh sort of right-wing insane program somewhere where they actually did believe that the Smurfs were fucking real communists. It wouldn't surprise me to hear that. Um, you know. But I always thought the Smurfs were communist thing. I always thought that was just like schoolyard bullshit. You know what I mean? That you heard like kids talking about, but I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, say for example, like if somebody were to eventually dig up like a Lyndon LaRouche newsletter or something like that, or like one of Ron Paul's old newsletters or something, and they talked about this, you know, communist infiltration within children's programming. You know, the same way that they did with like they tried to say that like, you know, He-Man was Satanist or something, or Star Wars was like, you know, occultist because of Yoda or whatever. It really wouldn't surprise me. Let's see. Inshoma, this is an amazing idea for an illustration. Smurfs versus Oompa Loompas. Oh, thank you. It might make for a good con print. Also, if you're up for chatting tonight, let me know. Oh yeah, totally, man. If you're having another stream, let me know, dude. By the way, for all you guys out there, I want to plug my friend Inshoma here. He's in the chat. He does live streams and stuff all the time too, and they're really cool. We talk about movies, stuff like that. You know, I think don't you have one for a Ultraman live watch party something? You know, feel free to put a plug in the chat there, Raph, if you want to. Let's see. The Delta variant is also much stronger than previous generations of COVID, and reports are coming out on how young new cases are becoming. So, you know, I was reading about that. So apparently it's less lethal, the Delta variant, but it's more communicable. So you're more likely to catch it, but less likely to actually die from it. And apparently that's a thing that happens with viruses because the more lethal strains end up killing their hosts, right? So the strain that remains ends up being less lethal, but it's sort of the natural evolution. Like, the strains that remain end up being less lethal, but more communicable. And that's exactly what's happened. But when they say less lethal, it's still pretty fucking lethal. It'll still kill you. It's still pretty bad. So just, you know, it's not like, oh, the Delta one is fine and everybody's going to be cool. Like, no. You should still worry about it, especially if you're not vaccinated. You should still be worried about it. Let's see. Smurf houses are sort of cream colored, right? If I remember right. It's been a while, but I'm just going to make them this. You know, you usually want to avoid making things straight up white. I've kind of, in my experience, like, in an illustration like this, you usually want to avoid straight white and straight black when it comes to colors. You know, like, you kind of want to, you know, make things off-white or blue-black, whatever. So we'll just make these sort of like a creamish white. Anyway, moving on. Dynacat loves me. Hey, what's up, Dynacat? In Texas, you have all the freedom you can pay for. That's definitely true. New person, Matthias Tau Megalou Alexandru. Oh, welcome. Thank you for joining. This is a glorious Smurfs versus Oompa Loompas. Never heard of Loompas before, though. The Oompa Loompas are the in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They're the little dwarfs that you know, what's his name? The Chocolate Factory guy. I can't remember his name, but they're the little dwarves that actually make the candy. So, which, if you're going to watch a movie adaptation of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, please watch the original with Gene Wilder. Not to say that the Tim Burton one is horrible or anything, because I think it's a good movie in its own right, but it's not the same. It doesn't compare. You know, it's a good remake, but the original is way better, you know, in multiple ways. So, I don't know. I do like Tim Burton's movies, though, don't get me wrong. You know, I think Tim Burton hasn't really had a winner in quite a while. Although his movies do really good, apparently the Alice in Wonderland movie made like frickin' $200 million or something ridiculous like that. But I think, I would like to see Tim Burton to get back more to his roots, make another Nightmare Before Christmas style kind of dark gothic thing. Those are the films I like the most. I like that. Batman Returns, I really like. That's like one of my favorite movies, Batman Returns, because it's so corny. But I really, really like the music and the stage, production design, stuff like that. And the dialogue is so bad that it's funny. At least my nose isn't gushing blood, shit like that. So I really love that movie. Anyway, moving on. Lewis the Hedgehog, do they think they can shoot the virus? Yes. I think we're talking about people buying guns with stimulus checks. Exactly. What is your firearm gonna do to stop a virus? Like nothing. Right? And I just think people are just fucking stupid. That's what it is. Either they have enough money already and they don't have to worry about bills and rent and stuff like that, and that way they can just go buy a gun, or else they're morons. And you know, it frees things up a lot when you don't try to like we shouldn't try to think too hard about why people do the things they do. It's like, okay, there's always reasons, there's gonna be deep psychological reasons, but ultimately those reasons usually don't matter. You know what I mean? It's like, why do people act the way they do? Why does somebody rob a store, for example? Well, there's lots of different reasons why somebody could rob a store. They're economically disadvantaged, blah, blah, blah. And we should, try to take steps to address these problems in society, right? Where the fuck is my fill? I need to... Wait a minute, did I just lose? Ah, there it is, okay. Right. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. And that's good, and that's all good and well, but when it comes to an actual, when it comes down to it, it ultimately really doesn't matter why somebody committed that crime. The fact what matters is that the crime happened, and, how does that help the guy that's the victim of the crime? You know what I mean? I guess it's like, why does somebody do something like stupid? Like, why does somebody, for example, not want to get a vaccine? Ultimately, it doesn't matter. The result is more people will die. So yeah, we can try to adjust. We should always try to address the root causes of things like crime and inequality and blah 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 blah. But really, ultimately, what matters is the solutions. That's what matters. How do you stop the crime? Well, maybe how do you stop crime? Well, by addressing these root causes, right? That's why. So that's why it matters. Like, how do you stop disease? By addressing getting people to fucking take vaccines, right? How do you stop things like child abuse, whatever, right? Like, we should really do the best we can to address the root causes of all these things. Find out those reasons. The reason why is, in my opinion, it's not as important as what we can get from it. You know what I mean? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I guess that's it. I'm trying to say, like, ultimately, I matter more about what that solution is rather than the individual person and why they engage in whatever bad behavior they engage in. You know what I mean? It's like if somebody's a dick to you for whatever reason, blah, 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 maybe maybe they grew up bad in their childhood, whatever, maybe they had shit like that. But really, it doesn't ultimately matter. Like, what matters is how they act and what we can do to, stop that kind of behavior. You know what I mean? How can we address the problems that these people are engaging, these people are causing, right? What kind of solutions can we get out of it? That's really what matters to me. Like, I don't really give a shit that, okay, well, this person XYZ was psychologically, had psychological trauma and blah blah blah, and it's because they grew up because their father never loved them, whatever, blah 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 blah. I don't care. tell me how we can, stop this person from engaging in a mass shooting, for example. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. I don't know. So, I mean, yeah, I guess I can kind of rephrase that. I guess it does matter. The reasons why do matter, but I think the reasons why, you have these social problems, the reasons why matter in so much that we can get solutions from them. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You know. Anyway, I don't know. I think we need to focus more on solutions. I guess that's my point here. So, let's see. Okay, we're gonna have to end this pretty soon, guys. We're getting close to 2 o'clock. Dinah Cat loves me. In a lot of places, they sit there with the vaccines all day and no one comes in. That's part of why they're shutting down. You know what they should do? They should take those vaccines and send them to countries where people need them. That's what they should do. Like, okay, people in Tennessee don't want to fucking get vaccines, whatever. That's bullshit. It sucks. It's fucked up. But, we can't force them. People in India are begging for these vaccines. So, yeah, let's send it to India, right? And, I mean, the most we can do, is encourage people to get vaccinated, and it doesn't help that they keep passing these fucking laws to, like, make it easier and easier to not get vaccinated. That's not helping us very much at all. I mean, I admit that, right? But, like other countries out there, like, yeah, like in India and Africa, South America, like Brazil, shit like that, people are begging for vaccines. Like there's, you see people in India, like, lining up for fucking miles. Miles. Standing there in a line that's miles long, trying to get vaccinated. Because these people believe in science, right? They don't have, an entire segment of their population that is, like, against fucking common sense public health measures. Brazil has almost as much deaths from this pandemic as we do. Somewhere around 400,000, right? They're going through lockdowns. They're going through all the same shit we have. In India, it's incredibly bad in India. Like, I saw a video of people in India who, apparently there's, like, a prevalence of black mold in India. And what happens is when you get sick with the COVID, the black mold, like, it suppresses your immune system, and so then the black mold fucking, like, grows inside of your eyes, and it's so bad that they have to remove people's eyes. So it's like, even if you survive, getting the Rona there, even if you survive it, like, you end up blind, like shit like that. It's like, it's fucking terrifying, dude. Absolutely terrifying. And it's like, I really can't believe that people in this country, who have an opportunity to get this vaccine that can return them to normal life, for free, are just, like, doing everything they can to, like, refuse to get it. You know what I mean? Like, while other people elsewhere are, like, tripping over themselves, right? Fucking trampling each other and shit to get in line to fucking get vaccinated. It blows me away. It's kind of like you really do think, like, wow, people in the United States have it so good that they can't understand how good they've got it. Like, that's really it. People in the United States really can't like, how good they don't understand how good it is here. Like, maybe that should be something, like, maybe we should require, as part of, like, a high school, like, education, to, like, send somebody overseas and have them live for a month in another country. Have them live in Argentina, or not Argentina. Actually, Argentina is actually pretty developed, but have them live in a developing country. Make them go to India for a month, or Sri Lanka, or, like, Nepal, or some other place where your access to things like electricity and water and the internet and all that stuff is not guaranteed. Just, have them see what it's like for, the people that live on $2 a day, to, like, how they survive. maybe that'll make, you know, a little bit more fucking appreciation for when, like, you know, your government provides you with a life-saving fucking vaccine. Maybe they'll be more likely to take it. I don't know. That's a fantasy. That shit'll never happen, but still, a man can dream, right? All right, guys. I think I'm gonna have to like end this here because not only has it been 2 hours, it's actually been more than 2 hours, but I really, really have to go to the bathroom. So why don't we go ahead and end the stream? Here's where we're at so far. Kind of got a lot done today, huh? Kind of, but you can see we're just sort of doing a paint by the numbers thing, and then we'll put in shadows and highlights and all that. Just to let you guys know, even if I don't read your comments during the stream, I do ultimately read all of the comments. So please go visit my friend in Shoma. You can see he is currently airing Ultraman Trigger. Wow, I didn't even know Ultraman Trigger was a thing. All right, I guess is that the latest Ultraman? I don't even know. So yeah, please go visit his channel as well. Brainbug, thank you for joining. Also, really appreciate that. Thank you guys all for joining. Thank you, Lewis the Hedgehog, for joining, and Inshoma, and Matthias. Matthias, am I pronouncing that right? Thank you for joining. Dynacat, always good to see you as well. Thank you. Job Carroll, that's a new person. Hey, thank you for. I have not seen you before. Thank you for joining the chat, Job Carroll. Always great to see new people as well. Brain Bug, that's another thank you so much also. And we're going to go ahead and end this. But before we end it, I have to do my ending speech, you know, where I tell you all about my social media and stuff like that. Please like and subscribe if you have not already. Let me see here. Hang on one second. Give me 1 second just to get all of these links and things ready here. I got that. I got a DeviantArt. I got my webcomic. So, sorry. Almost ready. Nope. Stop that. So, trying to keep ads and things from showing up. God damn it. What is my... Sorry, give me a second. So I need to find my SD shop here. No. It is... Let's see. There we go. Okay. So, if you guys like what I do, and you want to see more of my artwork, you can, let me just move this all over here, move this entire thing. If you like what I do and you want to see more of my artwork, you can see me on my DeviantArt site. I always put my artwork from the streams up on DeviantArt. I will put a link to this down in the chat, so please come check me out there. This is the thing that we just worked on over the last like 5 streams. So if you guys want to, you know, check it out, download a copy of it or whatever, feel free. So that's deviantart.com/Hawanja. If you like what I do and you want to support me, you know, monetarily, I have a Patreon here. So far I only have a couple of members, but I actually do have a couple of people giving me money on Patreon, which is great. So, you know, please feel free if you like what I do and you want to make a monthly contribution, you know, check me out on Patreon. If you want to help me monetarily but don't want to do a monthly thing, you can go to my SD shop here, and you can see I sell prints and things like this, you know. Holy shit, 12 people. Wow, okay, I better make some more of those. These are prints. This is actually something that we did during the stream. I drew this during one of the streams, and now I made a print out of it. So you can kind of like, you know, well, check it out there. So yeah, these are coffee-stained prints that I make, which are 11 by 17. You know, here's another one. This is a Lovecraft character from, you know, H.P. Lovecraft, whatever, stuff like that. So please check me out. It's on SD if you want to
give me money. I will really appreciate that. I also have a webcomic. This is hawanja.com, fun for the whole stupid family. This is what we were drawing last week. You know, should have the next page up pretty soon, just finishing up the colors for it. And I also have another YouTube channel. If you want to see me talk about toys and movies, and I do the occasional gaming live stream, you can check me out on UCD Videos. So, been doing a lot of toy unboxings and stuff, but I'm going to actually start doing some more things like movie reviews and that kind of thing. So yeah, if you want to see me talk about non-political stuff, you can check me out on UCD Videos. Anyway, thanks guys. Really appreciate you joining. Sorry for starting late, but I don't know, next time I'll be on time. And I think I'll probably make another video about vaccine conspiracy theories. If not the subject of next week's stream, I'll probably make a video during the week about that. Anyway, thanks a lot, you guys, all for joining again. Thank you, Lewis. Thank you, Raph. Thank you, Dynacat, and Job Carroll, and Matthias, and Brainbugs, and everybody else who joined. And I'll see you next week at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Daylight Time. Adios, everybody.